What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the last couple of months, several games have leaked out a bit early for the Switch through different ratings boards, and it looks like another rating popped up the other day that more or less confirms this title is still heading to the Switch. We're going to go over that one here today. Also, we're going to be talking about Microsoft potentially making a big change to their Xbox as well as other products, and it could actually affect everything around them in the technology sector. And we're also going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 and Best Buy, as it looks like they're starting to sell more and more of them, with a bit of a catch. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with 8BitDo and the Xbox. Now, they did have a controller that they released previously. It was branded by Xbox and Microsoft, but it was mostly designed for your cell phone, that being through game streaming using Android. But it looks like they are releasing an officially licensed 8BitDo controller with Microsoft that you can see here. It's been posted up on Amazon with pre-orders now live, and it's set to release on December 8th. This is the 8BitDo Pro 2 wired controller for the Xbox Series X, Series S, Xbox One, and Windows 10. They have several images here, also showing a couple of back buttons there. It's pretty cool. Nice matte black design with the different colored buttons A, B, X, and Y. And it looks like they are going with the D-pad in that top left corner and symmetrical sticks. The D-pad here would be much better than what we have on something like the Xbox One or Xbox Series controller, which is nice. The drawback here, though, is obvious. It's a wired controller. That's very unfortunate. It would have been nice if it was a wireless controller. It's currently set up at $45. It does still have the customization option using your phone where you can move different buttons around, remap, and also change sensitivity around even the triggers on the back there. So it's odd that it is able to communicate there, but then not to the Xbox. But either way, I do like the 8BitDo controllers. It's just a shame that it's wired, and who knows, maybe in the future we'll have a wireless version of it. Also, we did have an update go live for Quake on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series systems. We can see this over on Bethesda's website, detailing some of the updates for both platforms, with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X both seeing 4K maximum resolution, 120 FPS support, and on the PS5, DualSense adaptive trigger and integrated speaker support, as well as, of course, the haptics that they have there for the rumble. But it is really funny to be talking about Quake having 120 FPS support with 4K and even taking advantage of those adaptive triggers on the PS5. Also, you can use keyboard and mouse on the Switch. I saw this going around online, kind of being talked about with these updates. I don't know if it kind of just came along with these updates here, or people just realized you can now do this. But there you go. If you want to set up a nice keyboard and mouse kind of combination there for your Switch, you can do so. It's just really cool to see Quake continue to get updates now, even in 2021. We're talking about 4K and 120 FPS with that PS5 controller being taken full advantage of for adaptive triggers. Oh, and we did have some replacement parts start to go live for that Nintendo Switch OLED model on Nintendo's website. It's basically on their site. They have kind of a replacement parts section where you can order different pieces for your Switch, or even like your 3DS, or I think like Mario Kart Live is something else on there. But you can see on Nintendo's UK site as well as Nintendo Japan, these different parts have gone live. For example, you can just buy the dock itself with the LAN port, or you can buy the back cover. Like, think of that piece of plastic that you pop off of there that I'm sure many households will be losing. You can replace that by ordering on the site. They also listed the Joy-Con straps as well as a high-speed HDMI cable, so there we go. We've already kind of talked about it before and having confirmation that it is able to do things like 4K 60 with HDR. It's also labeled here as high-speed HDMI, so confirmed by Nintendo themselves. I would assume that a lot of these replacement parts will start to pop up across the board for all of Nintendo's websites, so let's keep an eye on that. And like I said, if you need a back cover replaced, you should be able to just order it here. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with another game that technically leaked out once again through a ratings board for the Switch. This game's already out, but we kind of thought it was going to be announced alongside of the other versions. We can see this rating that popped up on the ESRB for Alan Wake Remastered. Under platforms, we can see Windows PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, Xbox Series. Like I said, this is already out. I picked it up for the Xbox Series X. Haven't had time to check it out just yet, mostly because I went right into Metroid Dread as soon as I was back from the convention, but I will be looking into Alan Wake Remastered, and then I also have like Far Cry 6, and it's just, we're starting to pile up with some games here that I'd like to get through, but Alan Wake is an absolute classic, so I am excited to get to this one. I'm a little confused as to why it wasn't just announced alongside of the other versions, considering it's been rated by the ESRB, which tells me it's probably coming up here like for the holidays in 2021. Like, it could be announced in the next week or so. Although I guess Alan Wake Remastered itself did kind of just get dropped out of nowhere. Like, they just announced it on Twitter and just posted up on their website. Then like a month later, there it was on retail store shelves. So I guess we should be expecting this to just be announced anytime on Twitter and maybe then on their website. There, no Nintendo Direct or some sort of partner showcase, I would assume, is upcoming. But there is something else about this ESRB rating. I would assume this means we're not going to see a cloud version of the game, which is great news, because that's something that people have been wondering about different titles as they are rumored for the Switch, especially if they feel like bigger titles. Although Alan Wake is technically a 360 game that's being remastered for current platforms, so you would figure, yeah, they could probably make a Switch version for that. But as we've said, it's not always the can we do it, it's how much will it cost us to do it. Something like those Kingdom Hearts games, specifically like 1.5, 2.5, yeah, those probably could have been moved to the Switch, but how much would it have cost? We're seeing this ESRB rating here, which isn't typical for cloud versions of games, specifically on the Switch, to go through this process. So I assume, unlike Control or Hitman 3, this will just be a native release on the Switch, and that'd actually be pretty cool to get physically and have the Alan Wake remaster on a cartridge. So we'll just kind of keep our eyes out for this announcement. Like I said, it could happen at any time, much like it did for the other platforms, and maybe it just took a little extra time to make sure it was ready to go, whether it's through QA or even just having it confirmed by Nintendo so that it can pass all of its lot checks for the eShop. But just keep an eye out for Alan Wake Remastered for the Switch. Could be popping up at any time. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft, the Xbox, and right to repair, as it looks like Microsoft will essentially be looking into the idea of allowing you to not only fix your own console, but even provide documentation and parts. Now, right to repair is exactly how it sounds. Your right to repair your own property that you buy from these manufacturers, whether it's Microsoft or Apple or Samsung. And this has been an ongoing thing. And there are YouTubers like Louis Rossmann who has been pursuing this relentlessly. And it is good to see that, because if it was up to all these bigger companies, they don't want you touching any of this. They just want you to go to them and them only, not some technician that, while they could specialize, say, in cell phone repair or laptop repair, it's not Microsoft, right? Or it's not Apple. They want you to go to them so they can essentially control the market and their products. But we can see this over on purexbox.com, where they say Microsoft will investigate the possibility of allowing consumers, including Xbox owners, to repair their own hardware. Grist reports the American tech giant has reached an agreement with the non-profit investor group As You Sow, who asked the Xbox manufacturer to study the environmental and social benefits of repairing devices. A study sharing a summary of Microsoft's findings will be posted by May 2022, and if the investigation can prove there are benefits of do-it-yourself repairs, Microsoft will make its new parts and documentation available beyond its authorized repair network. And while this sounds great here on the surface, you have to remember, Microsoft just opposes the idea of right to repair, much like Apple does. The idea for Microsoft to have to provide parts, obviously for sale, like you'd have to buy the parts, but then also documentation that they've kept internal for quite some time, and they decide who gets to see it, and then they just have to like publish it on their website and give everyone the knowledge they need to fix the system, isn't something Microsoft wants to do. But it would be massive overall for just the industry, because if Microsoft did it, Apple would probably have quite a bit of pressure put on them to do the same thing, and then Samsung, and you would assume it'd be kind of like a domino effect, and Microsoft is a very large domino that could fall over and get things started. And to be honest, looking back on the amount of time I would spend back when I was repairing like seriously 8 to 10 systems in a day, to get to that point, the amount of trial and error that would take place on systems that I would buy in lots that were broken just to learn about it and essentially create my own documents around how to fix common issues with these systems. Or there's laser repairs that didn't really involve any soldering, more or less taking apart, figuring out certain lasers and little quirks in the system to make it all work and put it all back together again was extremely time consuming. And at times there were really systems that you couldn't figure out what was wrong and it was spitting out an error code, but you couldn't look the error code up online because no one else had been able to document the fix for it. Well, Microsoft is the one designing and programming these error codes to be spat out by the system, so you would assume they would know what's wrong. But right now, the argument seems to hinge on two things. Obviously, the right to repair your own property and not have the company you bought it from essentially roadblock you. And two, the environment, because a lot of these systems just get thrown out, and it's basic stuff sometimes. Like, for example, a lot of phones or even laptops have batteries sealed inside of them that you cannot easily access. Like we could before in a laptop where you just pop the battery out and you can pop it back in or replace that battery. No, you have to open it up completely and like rip the battery out. Well, if that battery stops working, a person might just throw the entire laptop out and buy another one. Same with cell phones. And obviously that starts to add up in different landfills across the world. So that is an argument that investors even are using right now to lean on Microsoft. And you could see the same thing with Apple. So we'll see what happens here when they turn their report in heading up to May 2022, and maybe we can make some legitimate progress to where in the future you can just go online, get the part and the documentation that you need in order to, say, repair a laser in your Xbox or a fan, or you're able to take it to any technician of your choice, no questions asked, and they have access to all of that stuff. It would be a massive step in the right direction. Next up, let's talk about Best Buy and the PlayStation 5. PS5, of course, very difficult to find. We just talked about a retailer yesterday who came up with the idea of engraving the person's name at time of purchase into the box and sending you on your way, and even ripping the DualSense controller out of the box and throwing that away, all in hopes that you're not looking to just resell the system and then come back a week or two later when more stock shows up. Well, Best Buy is going a different route. We can see this over on VGC, where they say Best Buy is currently selling PlayStation 5 consoles online, but access to the product is restricted to customers who have signed up to its new TotalTech membership scheme. I like scheme, by the way. That's probably the right word here, because launched nationwide this month, TotalTech is a technology protection plan that costs $199.99 annually. They describe it as the TotalTech gives you the peace of mind in one comprehensive plan, around the clock tech support, up to 24 months of product protection on most Best Buy purchases with an active membership, free delivery, and standard installation, plus other great benefits. So the idea here is if you are a member and you've paid your $200, you then have access to buy a PlayStation 5 for $400 or $500. I guess in Best Buy's mind, they can not only push this membership, but also, of course, sell the PS5 to someone who's probably not looking to flip it, because they would have then had to have paid extra money on top just to get access, and that cuts into the profit margins. But it's also annoying because you have to be signed up to this thing to be able to get a PS5 from them, and it's an extra $200. I think GameStop's approach to start bundling a bunch of stuff in there made more sense, although I'm sure resellers were also able to just sell all of those pieces, except maybe the PSN cards. I feel like those are a bit harder to sell over time, as opposed to the system and a controller, and it's really difficult to make this work currently, especially with everything being online. I do believe we're gonna get to a point where hopefully PS5s are more plentiful and they start showing up in stores. That, I think, is when we are going to see prices more or less stabilize, at least to where it's no longer as profitable for these scalpers to be buying PS5s constantly online. This doesn't feel like a great way for Best Buy to be looking out for consumers. It looks like a way for them to push their $200 membership that a lot of people probably aren't that interested in unless they can get a PS5 through it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the original Xbox. Next month, the system will be 20 years old. It's been 2 decades since the Xbox brand was launched, and there's a pretty interesting story that was shared online by Seamus Blackley. We can see this over on Twitter. Seamus Blackley, of course, is referred to as the father of the Xbox. He says, as we approach Xbox 20th, I feel a need once again to apologize for the literal last-second AMD engineers who helped us make the prototype boxes sitting in the front row for the announcement switched to an Intel CPU. It was Andy calling Bill, not me. And then he goes on to explain a bit more. I was standing there on the stage for the announcement with Bill G, and there they were right there, front row, looking so sad. I'll never forget it. They had helped so much with the prototypes that were literally running the launch announcement demos on AMD hardware. That is really an awkward situation. See, I was not aware of this, that they changed from AMD hardware, I guess, for the CPU to Intel last minute, to the point where they, I guess, had invited AMD engineers to sit front row, be really excited to see their work put into this box. And then they announced that it's NVIDIA and Intel in the system. Now, this would have been before AMD and ATI basically became one company. That happened, I believe, like a year or two into the 360's life. And I mean, look at the systems now. They just run all on AMD hardware, right, with the APU inside of it. So I guess it kind of worked out. It's just certainly not an easy thing, a situation to be in if you're standing up on stage realizing, oh, we changed to Intel? Well, we just invited all the AMD engineers to sit in the front row and watch us announce that it's actually Intel. So this will be a fun presser. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you ever attempted to repair or modify a game console? 61% said yes, I've tried to work on a system for, and 39% said no, I've never worked on a system. I think for a lot of people, there's that curiosity. If something breaks with your system, you immediately think, okay, let me look this up on Google. Let me just Google this, or look it up on YouTube, see if there is just a video walkthrough of how to, say, get this disk out of the system. Okay, my system's not reading a disk. Can I fix that easily? Could the hard drive died? How hard is it to get in there? These are things that I feel like people would attempt if they at least had the information presented, and they could then decide if it's worth getting into. And yeah, if you could just go to the manufacturer's website, look up documentation, and maybe they even provide video tutorials, you would probably have a lot of these systems that just get thrown out, saved by the owner of that platform. Seriously, some of these repairs are not that difficult. Now, there are some that I wouldn't recommend you attempting at your house, like HDMI replacement on the PS4, but the part itself there, it's only like $5 or $6, and even at that point, when you're paying someone to desolder and solder a new one down, all like total cost was like $65, which compared to a PS4 at the time being $400, yeah, it not only saves you money, but it also keeps that PS4 from going in the landfill. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Neil saying, COD might only have 7% on the poll, but it will still sell like 1 billion copies. Yeah, I do believe Call of Duty is still going to sell very, very well. It probably topped the NPD sales charts throughout like the next couple of months, sure. But remember, Activision and other larger companies like even EA, they have pretty high expectations for these flagship games that they release. Call of Duty has like massive expectations around it every single year. So even if they report like, oh, sold like 7 or 8 million copies, we might be like, wow, that's a lot of copies to sell in like a month or two. Activision might be like, yeah, but it's not 10 million, so it's pretty disappointing. So we'll see how Call of Duty does here, but like, I just don't really see a lot of people hyped up for Call of Duty this year. I see way more people talking about Halo and even Battlefield, but I guess we'll find out in those NPD sales charts as we go along, and then I'm sure Activision will eventually be telling investors how Call of Duty Vanguard did. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go to here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whereas Alan Wake Remastered, seemingly ready to go to the Switch at any time now. Let me know if you're picking that one up. Also, what about Microsoft looking into right to repair, maybe allowing you to repair your Xbox as well as providing parts to you and documentation? If all of that was in front of you, would you consider fixing your broken system right then and there? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.